Frank, you've been welcome again. You've been to our conference a few times. Frank, you're from the German Digital Out of Home Institute, and we don't have stuff like this in Germany, huh?
Not like this. Not quite like this, like always in Germany, you know, the big visions we sometimes have a problem with, but we got a few sites which are really cool. I mean, if you look at Digital Out of Home in Germany, we got a few things like in Berlin. We got some stuff. We got the one at the Kudamm. We got the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Also, the smaller stuff here in Munich, if you go to Stachus, you see this great big screen from Ströer on the way down into the subway station.
It's more indoor. It's easier to get them.
It's indoor, yeah, right? But it's also very impressive. I mean, you don't need to always have 100 or 500 square meters to impress people. If you get closer, if you have the chance to get closer, then you can impress people with 20 or 30. Square meters. So I'm looking at it from an advertiser's perspective. So I'm looking at it, what an advertising does to the people watching it. And there you find out it's more like the field of view than the sheer size. But of course, sheer size is something that
That's what's iconic. That's what people love to share, you know. But Kai was here yesterday. He mentioned something similar. And I think the biggest challenge in Europe is that we have historic cityscapes, you know, and digital is seen as something which is disrupting that. So that's the reason why most cities are not permitting that.
True. The cities are taking a long time to change, but they are changing. We see a lot of change happening right now, and I think we're going to see a lot of digitization in the outdoor segment in the next couple of years, because more and more cities see the benefits of these media for themselves, not only for the finance guy, but also for informing people, for getting into dialogue with people, for getting people out of echo chambers, which is one of the main reasons why politicians like this medium as well.
Frank, this all looks great, iconic, you know, it's done by agencies and everything, but the day-to-day business in digital out of home is different. And it's predominantly, at least what everyone talks about, programmatic. So when we started talking about programmatic a few years ago, there were always the Excel sheets and everything. You told me we are much further down the road now, and some of the incredible growth industry is currently seeing is really driven by programmatic, right?
Absolutely, that's the main driver of the market at the moment. I mean, it was always nice to have digital advertising spaces in the public domain, but then came the second digitization somewhere in 2017, 2018. Some of you will have witnessed it. Suddenly we heard about stuff like programmatic advertising, ad service, DSP, and we absolutely didn't know what people were talking about, and everybody claimed they could do programmatic advertising somewhere back then. Well, that was a time of a lot of Excel tables, yes, paper and pen and telephone calls, but I mean, fast forward a couple of thousand years to 2024. It's taken us something like 6 or 7 years, but we've really matured in the meantime. So today, programmatic advertising is programmatic advertising. Lots of automation.
And for some of the big guys, especially for national campaigns, it's a big share, right? It's more than
growing.
50%, right? Or 30, 40%? Or did you have an idea what it is? Or is there...
I think we can safely say that we're passing 40% this year. 40% of programmatic digital advertising of the total digital advertising, not counting the classical out-of-home advertising. So, and it varies. You know, we got some companies, some publishers who are just starting with programmatic advertising, so they are more like close to 0%. But we got others who've been doing it for actually more than 6 or 7 years. Companies like Executive Digital Networks, they came over from Australia, they had been doing it there and in the UK, and then came to Germany, and from the start they were doing mainly programmatic. So there are companies who have something like 60-70% of their revenues coming out of programmatic advertising. Then of course we got the others, especially the larger ones, the larger national advertisers who are not there yet, but they are moving upward, and I think all over the total market we're passing 40%.
Okay. Frank, the elephant in the room with programmatic is always, you know, how much is left over for the media owner, you know, because there's so many intermediaries and the CPM seems to be lower than direct bookings. I mean, the ideal mix is probably different for each media owner, but it probably makes sense to try to get as much direct booking as possible and fill up the rest, or what would be a strategy you would recommend nowadays to media owners?
Oh no, definitely programmatic first.
Programmatic first?
Yes, absolutely. for a variety of reasons. I mean, there's always a large share of classical bookings, of course, and you don't want to miss out on that one, and that's why people still have very classical sales teams. So that's a strong pillar of their revenues, but programmatic is the driver. It's the main driver. You cannot go to a customer, you cannot go to a media agency and tell them, I'm not doing that, or I like doing that. Why don't you do a classical booking? And you can play around more with your products and your prices in programmatic advertising. I mean, for classical bookings, you have your one price, your one rebate system that you have individually negotiated with all the agencies. But for programmatic, you can make spot prices. You can lower. You can raise CPMs. You know, when the situation is good, and well, you can take selection uplifts. You know, if people want to have a specific screen at a specific time, that's much more expensive than when they're doing the blanket.
So CPMs are on par or even partly higher on average? Or I mean, because you got the insight, so where are we? I mean, for larger networks, I assume for Ströer and Deco it's easier, you know, because they have a different market power. But do you see the market heading, and also what's left for the media owners? Because there's so many intermediaries. One thing is what the client, the advertiser is paying, but then you have so many hands in between, you know, so what's really left? I mean, I remember when it started with programmatic, you put $1 in and, you know, only 20 cents maybe was left over. Has it improved now a little bit, or do we still...
No matter who you ask, they're always going to tell you, I'm not getting enough of this. You know?
Well, that's fair.
Always. And it's true. It's been like that for years, that media owners have gotten less than they felt they should have gotten, but maybe should have gotten, you know, for a variety of reasons. Some self-inflicted, but no, I think the problem isn't that bad as in online advertising. For a variety of reasons. It's bad enough, you know, you got new intermediaries and suddenly you pay another 10 or 20% or even more out of your margin. But when you look to online advertising, it's much worse. And the reason for that is there are a lot more players, and that is because there's there's a huge fragmented market with lots of long-tail inventory. We got a great big difference between online one-to-one advertising and digital out-of-home advertising. We got a couple of differences. So one main difference is the long tail part. Online exists, or Google exists, because there were so many micro websites, you know, so many websites generated for all other kinds of purposes than doing advertising. Okay, most websites are not generated mainly for advertising, but most the larger websites live off advertising mainly. So in online you have this millions of small publishers, of small media owners. And if you want to bring them in the market, well, you got to consolidate
You need
them.
some network effects, some platforms to consolidate.
You need hubs where you can, and there's more opportunity to build more of these hubs, more of these exchanges and stuff like that. For digital out-of-home, it's completely different. We do have longer tail inventory, but not that much, because it's expensive to have a digital out-of-home advertising space up and running. It's not expensive to have a website up and running, but for digital out-of-home, you need prime real estate. You need somewhere where there's lots of people and the right people. You cannot just put a screen anywhere you like and then make money with it, but you've got to put it where, you know, stuff is going on and where the advertisers want to put their ad. So there aren't too many of those locations, and if you get them, you got to pay for them, you know. So you got to pay some rent, and then you got to put on a screen. Screen is expensive, and then the whole infrastructure, and you got to keep it running. So it costs a lot. That only works if you get a lot of money. That only you will get when the screen is at an interesting location. So in the end, much less long-tail inventory, much less inventory that is, you know, spread out with little or no contacts, you know, which is done more as a hobby than a serious business. So there is less fragmentation in the market, fewer big players, and so this keeps it together.
So do you see that for digital out-of-home we will have a few dominating DSP, SSP in the near future, because the market's more consolidated and they will gain higher market power? Or, I mean, even the big agency groups are now trying to play this game because they're seeing, you know, because media agencies are, for me, they have a really difficult position right now, because they always loved their silos, and programmatic killed that silo thinking, and they were the masters of Excel, to be honest. You know, they had this millions and billions to dollar to. They still do. So, but do you really see that there will be only a few digital out-of-home specific programmatic platforms for each market? Because it's also interesting, you know, almost every country has their own infrastructure with different names, different players. There's not even a pan-European dominating player, right?
That's right. I mean, there's two drivers going in the opposite direction. I think mainly we have the consolidation driver all through the market. You know, the media owners are consolidating. Of course, media agencies are consolidating in a very specific way in the out-of-home industry. Of course, the tech platforms are going to be consolidating once the Wild West is over, and we're getting there. We're getting into the mature market. But on the other hand, we see another development which I find quite interesting, in which I don't know whether it will make a great big impact or just some impact, and that's in-housing of programmatic advertising. Yeah. It's customers taking that in-house.
I heard like Vodafone also, right? They have their own media agency and they do everything, the programmatic things themselves, right?
Exactly. I would never say that's the end of the media agencies. There will always be media agencies because media agencies have different jobs. One of them is consulting, but it's also taking blame, you know, and handling budgets, and you know how it is. You know, you're a consultant.
You too.
I am a consultant. So, yeah. So there's always going to be media agencies, but it may well be that certain customers are going to take more control into their own teams, which doesn't mean they throw out the media agencies, but they take some of that and they take a closer look at it. And those guys may push towards more diversity because they may have customized trading desks or something in their house. I think that's a weaker driver than in the opposite direction. So I think we're going to see more consolidation on all levels.
Good. You mentioned programmatic it's a game changer. And the great thing of programmatic is, you know, digital out-of-home gets budgets from other media channels, you know, which were closed in the silo age. Do you have a rough idea, if you look at, you know, last year, whatever, you know, how much of the budget which came through programmatic in Germany, for example, you know, was non-dedicated out-of-home budget, or can you say that anymore because they don't dedicate it anymore to media? Or just a gut feeling, is it a third, or because the market is growing, how fast did the market grow in Germany, digital out-of-home? 20, 30%? 20 whatever percent.
Year-over-year.
I mean, it must come somewhere, you know, it can't be, it's obvious, you know, it's coming from online, from video or so. Do you have an idea of what they're...
We have a pretty good idea. I just don't have kind of like measured statistics to really back
just
it
share
up
your
in
gut
detail.
feeling, it's okay.
I mean, it's quite obvious. You don't need to be much of an expert. You look at the numbers, at the Nielsen numbers, and you see, well, who's losing? Print has been losing for years, okay, so
TV.
It's a slow decline. And now we see TV at the cusp, you know. I think we're just past peak TV, and so there's some money coming from out of there, and well, online, I guess they're still growing a little. They're going to have problems with the cookies, and so stands to reason. But they're not as big as TV. So if TV declines a little, it's a huge number of euros. If online declines a lot, it may be less money in absolute terms. So it's TV, and we had just had a talk from Christian Ravot from Rewe in our conference last week, and he said on their retail media they see 50% which comes from external. Which comes from other media. He also had a little chart showing that, and TV was a large part.
With retail media, that's the last topic. Retail media is huge. We all know that, and for you know, supermarket chains, that's a game changer because the margin is so much higher than selling bread. But do you see? It's quite interesting. You know, digital out-of-home is coming closer to retail media. I mean, retail media looks almost identical to digital signage, to digital out-of-home, but it's totally different budgets. So, do you see out-of-home player also coming closer to the POS, or is there a natural border where you say everything outside the store is digital out-of-home and the other ones won't touch it because Deco is doing it did it for you know, putting screens inside the store, which most retailers now they would say, please, we don't want to do that. But do you see that growing together, or is there a natural, you know, border where you say, you know, that's different businesses?
That's a historic necessity. I think Karl Marx would say that digital out-of-home and retail media are seen as one. Of course, it makes total sense. I mean, separating the in-store media from digital out-of-home, marketing media, you know, branding media is nonsensical for a simple reason. If you want to place an ad that has a lot of impact, you got to put it out to the audience at the right place at the right time, when they're in the mindset. Of course, you know, I'm thinking about buying a car. I'm much more receptive to a car ad, you know. Now, when I go shopping in a supermarket or in an electronics market or some other retail location, I'm absolutely in the shopping mindset for this specific location I'm in. What other place, what other time would be better than placing an ad for a branding message, not a sales message. Not the message, well, you can buy another candy bar.
But it's new. I fully agree. But isn't it new competition for traditional out of homes? Because Rewe is doing by himself, or Tesco or so. They're operating by themselves. So all these new budgets coming to digital out of home, isn't there a threat that some of them moves over to retail media and out of the typical digital out of home industry?
Well, I would say the moment Rewe does their own sales on retail media, which are digital out-of-home screens, they are part of the digital out-of-home industry.
That's easy.
So, yeah, of course, there's revenue going to those guys, but I think it's revenue coming into the medium.
Yeah. So you see that as more or less as one. It's the different stories, but it's one industry and one technology, and at the end, one story, one communication.
Exactly. Rewe is one of our members in the institute.
Yeah.
So they see themselves, that team, that the department at Rewe sees themselves as a sales team for digital out-of-home media.
Cool, good. Frank,
welcome.
Really, really insightful. Thanks a lot, and hopefully see you soon. Thank you.